Hi, this is Lejeune with Lejeune Singleton LLC, Fitness, Health, Nutrition, and Wellness Podcast. Today we're talking about mental health, sexual assault, how you can overcome that to become mentally well and mentally healthy. So today I want to introduce author, blogger, wife, mom, Amelia Zachary. Thank you for joining me, Amelia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you give a background on yourself?
So I was born and raised in Malaysia. And when I come from a very conventional family, very conservative, and we had a lot of rules about what girls did and what girls didn't. And when I was 19, I was raped. And a few years later, when I sought professional help, I found out that I was suffering from PTSD as well as bipolar disorder. And so that's why I'm here today. I'd like to share my story and help anyone, hopefully reach out and give hope to people who have gone through the same trauma or who are going through the same post-trauma processing, to be able to see that there is a life after rape and there is a life that you can be thriving in through mental illness.
So during that time in your rape experience, how were you able to thrive and to move forward? Because I was sexually assaulted, I was molested as a child. It took me years to be able to deal with that. What were some of the steps that you took to be able to move forward from that?
So after I was raped, I was in a lot of isolation and seclusion from people because I was also bullied. I was shamed. I was slut shamed and blamed for what had happened. I was told that I was asking for it. I was told that I was wearing the wrong dress. I was in the wrong place. I was drinking too much, or I was with the wrong people, and there were all these things floating in my mind. And I was 19 years old, and that's not very old to have any kind of wisdom to be able to deal with that kind of pain. And I internalized it. I was mad, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was tormented, this mental anguish of being violated. I didn't actually think that it was violation at that point. I thought that I had made the wrong choices. I thought that I made the bad choices because growing up, good girls don't do these things. Good girls don't go out at night. Good girls don't wear certain dresses. Good girls don't take drinks. Good girls don't do these things. And I did those things and I ended up in that situation. So I blamed myself for it too. And unfortunately for me at that point, I didn't have the awareness or the knowledge or the support to be able to understand and process what had happened. So I brought that with me into my adulthood. And about 8 years later, I met my now husband, who realized there were some behaviors in me that were not healthy and were not right. And so he encouraged me to get professional help. And that's when the first time I heard the word rape. That was the first time I heard the word sexual assault, rape, and a violation of my body. And it was hard to accept or understand because that belief was so strongly instilled in my mind that I had done something wrong, that I took it with me and I didn't really accept it as rape. I still believe that I had a part to play in it. So it took many, many, many years of treatment, and many years later, only recently when I decided to write this book, I decided to write a memoir on my life. And the reason I was writing the memoir was because I have 2 little girls. And I wanted them to know the pain that I had gone through. And then a realization came to me that I was in a different place now. Because now that I have them, I am in a different place, and I want them to know that there is a way out of it. And then I started processing through my writing. I started processing, and I finally accepted that I was raped. The acceptance came almost 20 years later. It was a very difficult thing for me to accept. And I think this is something that happens when we have kids. We reparent ourselves, because I'm telling my kids something and I want to be able to model that for them, right? So I wanted to be able to model a figure of strength, a figure of resilience and persistence to live and to have a life that is fulfilling, to thrive in a life. And so that's where I think I started to pivot my healing towards growth and trying to find a way to change my relationship with my past. I think you can't change the past. It's happened and there's nothing I can do to change it. However, I can change my relationship to it and how I see it, and so that I can affect my present. And so that's where I think the mindset shift happened for me.
So was your rape your first sexual experience?
Yes.
Okay. And how were you able, when you met your husband, I'm sure that was a challenge for you to try to be intimate with him. So can you kind of talk about how you were able to overcome that? Because it is a struggle. Most women, when their husbands or boyfriends touch them, they relive their sexual assault. And that's why most marriages and relationships break up, because they feel like, okay, I feel like I'm being raped again. So can you kind of talk about your experience of overcoming that with your husband?
So I went through a process of self-destruction. After the rape. I wanted to take back the power, and I wanted to be in charge, and I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I was promiscuous for quite a time because I was processing this pain at the time. This is retrospectively speaking. I guess we're calling in the mature narrator to look into my life retrospectively. When that was happening, I thought I was taking back the power and I was going to have sex with whoever I wanted, whenever I wanted, because I was in charge and no one was going to do something to my body uninvited. And so that happened, but that wasn't a healthy way of processing it. And as you can imagine, that did nothing but cause even more pain and even more shame, because I felt these things that kind of collided with my core values, because I didn't actually want to do those things, but I thought that I was taking charge and I did them. So I lost my trust in men and lost my trust in people in general. I didn't believe that any relationship was real, because friends who were my friends were no longer my friends. After that happened, they blamed me for what happened, right? So it was this whole pot of stewing pain from people around me that made it very difficult for me to have any kind of relationship. But when I met my husband, something changed and he had to work a lot for it. He loved me a lot and very unconditionally, that he stood by me even through the testing times. I did a lot of challenging behaviors. I tested him. You don't love me enough, or you don't care for me. You're just doing this because you want to get something out of me, or, I don't want to be touched because it feels disgusting to me. And these are very hurtful things for a spouse to hear.
All right.
But I give him that respect, that he was very unperturbed in his conviction that he loved me. And he went with me to treatment. He went with me to the my therapy sessions, and he learned the healthy ways, healthy boundaries, and healthy ways and productive ways to be together. And we went through it together. And I guess we learned how to be around each other and how to overcome those things together. But I think a lot of it had to do with his resilience.
Right.
And his persistence in wanting to be with me and wanting to prove that he loved me and he cared for me. And it took years to build that trust. We've been together for 11 years now.
Oh, wow. So, wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I think that's a lot of it had to do with patience and devotion. Yeah.
And that's definitely important. So did you have that conversation with him that you had been sexually assaulted, or was it something that just kind of came up in a process of you going to therapy?
Oh, no, I had that conversation to try and push him away. To say that I had done something terrible in my life. You will not be able to see past this. This is what has happened. This is what I've done. And you're not going to want to be with me. But he said, no, this is something that's happened to you. You do realize that this is something that happened to you. And I just couldn't hear it. I just couldn't hear it at the time, because I was not in the right space, and I was so much in pain and anger and just regret and all these things that made it very difficult for me to hear the words. So treatment has been very, very, very essential in my healing.
And that is definitely very important, because it is hard. It's hard to try to move forward because moving forward is supposed to be the best thing. You want to be married, you want to be in love, but you have that past that's holding on to you, that's pulling at you, that's saying you're not worthy. I took a piece of you. And you feel like you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
So at what point that you felt in your marriage that you were like, or before the marriage, okay, I deserve to be loved. I deserve to feel happiness. I deserve to feel peace. At what point did you feel that for yourself, that you were able to let go of that?
I think it was when I was dating him. I never met a man like him. And I'm sure there's somebody like that for everybody, right? You meet that one person that you know that it's different and you feel like it's different. And he made me feel like I wanted something more. I wanted a life, and he accepted me for all that I was. And that was a huge thing, the support. So I'm talking from a space of my spouse, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody has somebody. It doesn't have to be your spouse. It could be your best friend. It could be your mother. It could be your friend. It could be somebody. But having that somebody have so much trust and faith in me and love for me made me realize that there was a life that I was wanting, that was outside of this pain, that was away from regret, away from shame, that I didn't have to have those feelings. And guilt. Guilt was a big one too. Like being able to see that there was an inkling of hope that life could be different, that made me have that thirst and hunger for that life. I think then made me more committed to treatment, made me more committed to mindfulness, made me more committed to my life, to being present in my life and not being plagued by the past.
And that guilt is hard for me. I think if a part of it was guilt with the sexual assault, but for the molestation, I was embarrassed. I felt like I'm a kid and I was embarrassed, and I felt like I should have protected myself. I'm 5, 7, 8 years old. Like, how the heck
no way you could have done that.
Right, protect myself from a teenager. So, it's in our mindset is we always think of what we could have done differently. And sometimes you just have to say, it wasn't my fault. It was their fault. They should have had more control over themselves.
Yes. It's when a violation occurs, really, that's the rape culture that we live in. It's the culture that we live in that perpetuates sexual assault and behaviors that allow and abate sexual assault and sexual violence. I think we live in is gender inequalities, things that we teach girls, that girls need to do these things. Don't wear your hair in a ponytail when you're going out running. Carry your keys between your fingers when you're going to the car or when you're walking alone. Like there are these things that we teach girls to protect themselves. And we don't address the issue. We don't actually address the true issue of the violations that are occurring. And we don't talk about those things. Those are the kind of conversations that really need to change. We need to change the way we raise our children and the way we respect each other, the way we talk about boundaries and respecting boundaries and enforcing boundaries. I think those are the things that we don't talk about enough in the right sense of the matter. It's a societal issue. It's not a woman's issue.
Right.
It's not a woman's only issue, right? It is something that affects all of us. And so I think that is the kind of thing that the culture that silences women who have been assaulted, silences children who have been assaulted, because we are raised to believe that the onus and responsibility during a violation is upon the victim. And victim blaming is something that is so horrid.
Yeah.
That it doesn't exist in our social script. The healing doesn't exist in our social script anymore. We want to know about the whys, why it happened and how it happened, but we don't talk about how the victim is healing. Are we getting the support to the people who need the support? And I think that's so important.
And I agree, because we never look at the fact of everything is blamed on the woman or the girl. It's either her pants were too tight, Her shirt was too tight. Her skirt or dress was too short. It was too revealing. It was this, it was that. You can have on sweats and somebody can still sexually assault you. So
no, and then you talk about you being molested when you were a child.
Right.
How is a child sexualized? Like
exactly.
that's the sickness is in a different place, but because you were raised in rape culture that places that responsibility on a child, I assume that you thought you were responsible. And so you felt embarrassed about it.
I knew
I'm presuming.
Yeah, I knew I wasn't responsible, but I was embarrassed that I couldn't prevent. And that is, typically for most women, like for yourself, I'm sure you were thinking at that time, what could I have done differently? What if I didn't go to this place? Would this have been a different outcome for me?
Of course, so I said,
Yeah, so it's that whole mindset of what could I have done, differently? And for me, it was my cousin. So I was going to always see him. But it was more so if I felt I wish I could have protected myself. And as a kid, I couldn't protect myself.
No, you couldn't. The responsibility is not upon yourself.
Right.
So, but and that's how you were asking me about how I transitioned into healing. It's a lot to do with abandoning the why. The why it happened doesn't matter anymore because it happened. It could be because the person was demented, because the person was, the person had all these views about me or about women, about respect, about how his core values were different. Whatever the reason was, matters no longer to me, because now what's important is where am I going with this? What is my relationship to my past? What am I going to do with my present outcome? I can learn from it. I feel the anger, I feel the pain, I feel the resentment for something like that happening to me. And feelings are just feelings. You can feel that way about things because it's a valid feeling to be feeling after something like this happens. However, does not serve me any more purpose to be stuck in that loop anymore. I have a life that's long to be lived. And if I want to be, I can choose to be stuck in that loop and keep crying over why it happened, or I can try to take that pain and now transform it into something else. Take it with me and remind myself of how strong I am to have gone through that and still be here today, living my life. How amazing that is, that inner strength that I possess to be able to be the person that I am today. And that's what I like to focus on now. And the person that I want to build into the person that I want to become. And I want to keep growing, right?
Right.
So in order to keep growing, I made a promise to myself that I will take that pain and transform it into something else. Something that is helpful and strong for me.
That is definitely powerful, and especially you're a mother of 2 girls. So what examples and words are you setting for your daughters in a situation of being a mother who has been raped? And today's culture and today's society is so much that's going on. So what conversations do you have with them?
Well, first of all, I try to remind myself that rape is a violation. There's nothing you can do to really prevent it if someone was really going to do it to you, right?
Right.
So I want to have the presence of mind to be there for my children. I want them to understand if something had happened to them, that I will be there for them. That there's no way you would be alone in the world the way I felt when I was raped. But I do teach my children boundaries. I feel like I say this like it's something very simple, but I think that if we all taught our children boundaries, to enforce their own boundaries, to be able to have healthy boundaries around other people, and teach them how to respect other people's boundaries. It all comes down to boundaries. When it comes to consent, it's a boundary. When it comes to intimacy, there are boundaries. And so being able to understand those boundaries, even at a young age, my children are only 6 and 4. Mm-hmm. So this conversation is at its very elementary stage.
Right.
I'm still teaching them the basics of the foundations of boundaries. But I think this is a very important lesson for them to be carrying on in life, to understand boundaries, to avoid situations like this.
And I think that's definitely important. And it's unfortunate now in our now society, we have to teach kids this at a younger age. Whereas growing up, that wasn't a conversation that was had. It was, child's play, everything as a kid. You stay in a kid's lane. But now you have to educate your kids about, somebody, because now teachers are touching kids inappropriately. They're having sex with, 10-year-olds and so on. And having that conversation of if somebody's touching you inappropriately, if somebody's saying something inappropriately to you.
Or somebody making you feel uncomfortable. Right. I tell my children, if you don't feel comfortable, then you get out of there. That's it. Or you say no, thank you, and you move along.
Right. And, teaching your kids if they're uncomfortable with a family member, because it was that thing years ago where you're pushing your kids on an uncle or a cousin or somebody, oh, go hug them. And your kids are like, no, I don't want to hug them. That's a sign that's telling you that they're picking something up from that person. Don't force your kids onto anybody.
And that's boundaries, right? Yes. We're respecting the children's boundaries. That if the child does not want to do something, then it's not necessary for us to push those boundaries. Then we're teaching our children that I don't respect your boundaries. You're going to hug your uncle, whether you like it or not. And so those are the things I feel like we need to teach our kids, and even boys.
Yes.
Because we talk about girls, but even boys need to learn. Imagine if all our kids in the ideal world, all our kids learned about boundaries and all our kids grew up and respected each other's boundaries, then this would not be a conversation.
It's so true. It's so true.
Roofing someone's drink or trying to date rape or like all those things would not be an issue if all our children understood what boundaries meant. Well, that's my simple theory. I know there are a lot of other things that come into play. It's a sickness. It's a lot of different things. But I'm from a motherhood point of view, I think that it's so important to teach our children these things that gives them a fighting chance at a world that's a little better than what it is today.
And I agree with you 100% because boundaries are important. They're there for a reason. You're saying no, and no should be respected. No matter what situations, it should still be respected. So you have a book. Can you tell us about your book and what it's about?
So my memoir is scribing on my chaotic and magical life I have today. And it comes from a background of rape, post-trauma processing in it, and bipolar disorder, and a life that is possible after rape. And so I hope that book can give an insight to what it's like to live with trauma and also with mental illness. Bipolar is a very misconstrued mental illness amongst a lot of the mental illnesses out there. And I wish to give better insight for people to see what it really is like, the realities. And I also want people who are going through it to have hope that there is a way that we can live through this life. It's not easy, it's ugly, it's messy, and it's chaotic. But there is a life at the end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel where we can have a life where we are present and we're living through it. So that's my hope in my memoir.
And what made you decide to write this book?
It was two things. One, it was for my children. I want them to see the story. They're too young now to understand what's going through, but I felt called upon to write the story now. So I started writing the story, and then I realized that I found meaning and purpose. And this is another part of the healing. Finding a meaningful purpose in my life made me feel like I was in a better place of healing and growth. And so through writing the book, thinking of all the people that I can reach and I can help, that gave me a special meaning in life and gave me a purpose to live on. Because I do fight with suicidal ideation still through my mental illness. I still have that, and I struggle with it, and I have been successful at managing it, and I found ways and tools and efforts that I can make for me to be able to live outside of that. And so I felt like if I could help somebody else feel the same way and help somebody else, that really gave me a fire to live, that I had a purpose in this life. And so, and it feels that way. Like, I blog also. And in my blogs, there are very real, raw, honest truths about my realities and my experiences in life. As a mother with bipolar, as a wife with bipolar, what my episodes look like, and what those kind of things I write about. And I've heard back from some people who said that, who have been open with their experiences, and just having that feedback fires me up and makes me feel like I'm doing something important. And that's a huge part of my healing process, to be able to feel whole and to be able to feel worthy and a part of the world that I live in, a connectedness to the world. Because a lot of the mental illness, a huge part of the mental illness that I go through, I a lot of times feel alone. And through PTSD too, I feel very alone and isolated. And I can be surrounded by family and surrounded by friends, but that feeling of isolation is very deep. And so this writing had become a part of my healing.
And before you were diagnosed, did you just think it was a part of the rape that was going on with you? What were your thoughts around what was going on? Was it related to the rape? Was it related to not having support? What was going on in your life?
So before the diagnosis, I actually had no idea. I thought I was just living my life and doing whatever I wanted. And I had no idea that all these behaviors were actually symptoms of PTSD and symptoms of bipolar disorder. And so when I was first diagnosed, no, I'm not crazy. I do not have this bipolar disorder. Serial killers have bipolar disorder. Or the crazy ex-girlfriend you see on TV, like she has bipolar disorder. I do not have that. But then we went through lists of behaviors and lists of a long laundry list of all the things that I had done, which my boyfriend kept. And like he was with me during the sessions. I didn't even want to go to those sessions, but he went with me. And so he was talking to the doctor and reporting, well, on this day she did this, and then she did that, and then she did this. And I'm going like, what? And then he said like, well, is that not accurate? I'm like, yes, it is accurate. It happened. However, it doesn't mean I'm crazy.
Right.
Then he said like, well, if we picked up one of these things, I wouldn't say that it was unhealthy behavior, but the pattern of these behaviors are not healthy and not productive behaviors, maladaptive behaviors. And so we should look further. And that's when I got my diagnosis.
Wow. Okay. So how are you now managing your mental health illness, being a mom, being a wife? Because, most people, they can't manage or balance all those things.
So if I try to do it separately as a wife, as a mother, it becomes something that's very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. When really the truth is, I have to be healthy by myself. On my own, I have to be healthy. Isn't that a saying, happy if mama ain't happy?
Right.
So I have to make sure that I am healthy and I'm able to be present, because when I'm healthy, then everything else falls in place. So I do a lot of things. Like part of my treatment side of things is I do drug therapy and I do talk therapy, and that helps me keep balance because bipolar has a biological factor to it and it has an environmental factor to it. So the biological factors I can't control. That's stuff that's going on in my neurological system. And so I take care of that with the drugs, and I take care of that with talk therapy. And then I have my environmental factors where I try and keep everything else stable, which is like knowing my limitations and my boundaries, keeping my environment stress-free. I mean, you can never actually be stress-free because we live very stressful lives. Being a mother, being a wife, I live a very stressful life. But having all these tools in place, like I do mindful exercises, I meditate, I go out for hikes, I spend time with my children just doing nothing. I do things that enhance my liveliness in my life. So I try to do things that keep me feeling alive, keep me feeling balanced, keep me feeling zen. And those are the things that I can try to do to keep everything in order for me as a person to be whole and to be present. And that's how I think I managed being a mother and a wife.
So how are you able to get to this positive place that you're at now? Because of course, there's women out there that's watching this and they're like, well, how is she doing this? How is she so positive? She was raped. She has a mental illness. She's a mom. She's a wife. She has all this other stuff going on. How is she able to become this positive person at this point in her life? So what was that transition and how are you able to do that? Because again, most women can't do it. It's not that they can't, they don't know what it looks like.
So first of all, I am on a podcast and we're talking about healing. And so of course, in this space and time, I am very positive and I'm spewing out all the truth that I can because I want to help people. And I'm telling you all the things that can help. But the truth is, the raw truth is, I am not positive all the time. We're only human. And what I can do is to manage those situations, manage those episodes in which I'm not doing well. And that takes a lot of things. Like I have a great support system. I have an amazing husband who is there for me whenever I'm down. There are days that I'm down. There are a lot of days that I'm down. And some days I'm depressed and I'm unable to do things. Or some days I'm manic and I just cannot process things. My mind is racing and I can't process things. And we have kids and that's not an option. Mm-hmm. So my husband has been the biggest supporter and the biggest, he's not just a supporter, he's my partner. Whenever I'm down, he jumps in and he does the girls' baths and he does whatever it takes to take the stress away from me in order for me to be able to heal. And he knows like every episode passes. And so he lives through those episodes by being as supportive as he can. And that being the supporter is not just about doing things that you think needs to be doing. I think a lot of people mistaken being helpful with actually imposing your values onto the other person. If I do 1, 2, 3 for you, then you should be able to get out of bed and do 4, 5, 6. Right? Or if you would only get up and go for a walk, if you only do this and if you only do that, and there are all these expectations, false expectations that are not helpful for the person who's suffering. And so I feel like we've worked that out. It hadn't always been this way. It hasn't always been perfect like this, but it's almost perfect to how he jumps in order for me to be able to have that time to myself to heal. And that's so important, like undistracted by I'm free from distractions of stress and that will keep me from healing. And I'm also a very spiritual person. I believe in a higher power and I believe that I've had suicidal attempts before. They failed, obviously, because I'm here today. Right. But I believe that if I was not taken away, if I was not successful, then there is a purpose for me. And what that purpose is, I'm not very sure. I'm not very sure about that purpose, but I am at peace knowing that there is a purpose and it will present itself to me, or it won't present itself to me, or it might just happen and I might not even realize it's happening. But I have faith that I have a purpose in this life and that I need to carry on growing and becoming the person that I need to be. And what that person, and I live a life of adventure now. I see it as a life full of mysteries, things that I don't know. I don't know where I'm writing this book. I don't know where this is going. I just wrote a book. Let's see where it goes. And that's exciting. That excitement in life makes me feel a little bit more alive, makes me feel, that brings the positivity in. I think doing little things, many little things that makes me feel alive is what makes me feel happy and positive about life. And it's not 100% positive all the time. Obviously, I'm human. Right. So like, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, it's normal. Take those feelings and feel those feelings, because feelings are feelings. However, feelings are not facts. And we can only make decisions and mindsets based on facts that we are presented with, evidence. And so that's how I think I have been able to process the things that are going on in my life.
That is amazing. What advice would you give women or men who are suffering with bipolar, suicidal ideations, victims of sexual assault? What advice would you give them to help them move forward?
I would not say advice, because I don't feel like I'm qualified, or I'm, I'm a professional in something, but
it's on your personal experience.
Yeah. So I'll say, sharing from my personal experience and the struggle that I've been through, I think what's helped me the most was to hang on. I know you don't feel like there's anything to hang on to. Just hang on a little longer every day, because it passes. Whatever pain this is, it always passes. But you have to wait for that window and hang on so that you get to the window. So I feel like that's been my mindset reminder. Every time I'm in those states, I remind myself that there is a window. I just haven't seen it yet, and it's coming. It will be my turn to open that window. And so hold on, hang on, because it can only get better. Once you're rock bottom, that you can only get better, and it will every time.
And I like that. That is powerful, because you're right. Sometimes we don't see it in that moment, but it comes when it's meant to come, and it's a process. So it's not always going to be handed to you right at that moment, but when it comes, it's very powerful. So I definitely like that.
And another piece, when we talked about people going through trauma, right? I have a saying among my friends. We say there are no wrong cards. So this came about because we were in Sedona and we were doing tarot cards. For the first time, we were all excited, sitting there, and this lady's shuffling the cards, and she's shuffling the cards, and cards kept falling out of the deck. And we kept trying to pick them up to give it back to her. And she's like, no, that's your card. It's for you. And then we looked at each other and went, oh, there are no wrong cards.
Right.
Like, but isn't that what life is? There are no wrong cards. Things happen because they happen. It's not good. It's not bad. It just happened. It is part of our experience in our life, and everybody has a different experience. And even if we had trauma in the past, all it is that it's trauma. It's an experience. And now what we do with the deck, what's the next card?
Right.
Like, that's what's important. So hold on and have a sense of adventure, that like something different, something beautiful, something magical, and something wonderful is about to happen. You just haven't got it yet. And like, be patient with yourself, and be patient with the voices that tell you, that remind you of the pain. Just be patient with yourself, and like, change that relationship to the past, as I said. And they're just, all they are experiences, little blimps in our lives.
So true. So now, what does mental health and wellness mean to you?
It means absolutely living the life that I want to live. Not a life that is marred by pain and by illnesses, because I know now that it can be treated. I can manage them. So bipolar disorder for me is not something that's going away. I am going to experience these episodes, and I don't live in these episodes. So these episodes come and go. And in between, I have this beautiful baseline where I'm present and I'm free of all those things. And I may be anxious about the next episode a little bit, but I feel like I'm living my life now because I'm able to manage those episodes. So mental health means to me living the life that you want to live and being present and enjoying this experience and living it. So that's what I think mental health is.
Yeah, that in itself was so powerful, and that's true, because I think so many people get caught up with their health issues or their mental health issues or their past trauma that they don't realize, okay, it happened. I know I'm bipolar, I know I'm schizophrenic, I know I'm X, Y, and Z, but I'm not going to allow this illness to define me. And
I always say I have bipolar disorder. I am not bipolar. It does not define me. It's just like any other ailment that you would have. If you had a heart disease, if you had diabetes, if you had migraines, they're just medical conditions. And I have one of those. And there's a way to treat it. You treat heart disease with medication, with exercise, with diet, dietary changes. Well, with bipolar, I have my tools that I have to use too, which are like the drug therapy or talk therapy and my mindset changes, my cognitive behavioral therapy, things like that that I use to manage my illness. And that's all it is. It is an illness, and it does not dictate my life. So, well, not anymore.
Right. And that's what counts, because now you know it doesn't define your life at this point. So that's important. And oh my gosh, kudos to you. So when is this memoir dropping? Because I definitely want to grab it.
I'm hoping sometime end of this year or early next year. I'm still editing my manuscript right now, so we'll see. But I will definitely be sure to let you know when it does drop.
Yes, please, because I definitely would like to read it. Because you have a powerful story, and many men and women need to grab this and read it, because we all have suffered from something in our lives that we need to learn how to turn it around to something better and learn from it. As you said, we experienced the past happen. Let's not stay in there. Let's have experience from it and move forward, and how it can benefit our lives now in something positive. So definitely, your blog, where can people check your blog out?
So check out my blog for like my short stories on all the things that I was talking about today, and also updates on my memoir. If you sign up for updates, then you'll be updated for what's going on with that. It's ameliazachary.com. My Zachary is spelled a little different. It's Zachry. That's ameliazachary.com. Or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Brown Girl Crazy World.
All right. Thank you so much. I would like to have you back after your book comes out, so you can kind of talk about, that experience of having your book out, because I know you're going to be touring and signing and doing so much with that, because it is a powerful book, and people need to have it. They need to read it. They need to, get an understanding that, okay, this too shall pass in my life. So thank you. Thank you so much for being that voice for so many women and men as well, because men experience sexual assault as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for holding space for me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope this helps somebody who's going through it, or helps somebody who's supporting someone get some insight on how to be good allies and advocates too.
Thank you again. Anybody who has experienced sexual assault, mental health, don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. Please, there's so many resources and services out here. Please utilize those services. Google local locations you can go to get help. Don't live with being mentally ill and being embarrassed about it, because there's so many people who are living with it, and they're living very, very well with their disorder. So thank you again. Till next time.